Do you find yourself yearning to steal the spotlight? Do you always feel the need to go bigger and better? Do you have the raw passion to risk it all for greatness? Then this deck tech may be for you. Hey, I'm Casual Jake, and today I am bringing you another EDH deck tech. But before we get into it, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you want more MTG content like this. You can also like the video and comment below if you find yourself enjoying this one. Well, let's not miss our call time. The show is about to begin.
Passion is one great force that unleashes creativity, because if you're passionate about something, then you're more willing to take risks.
This quote by esteemed musician Yo-Yo Ma perfectly encapsulates the essence of Prismari College. Prismari is one of the 5 colleges that can be found on the plane of Arcavios, which is featured in the set Strixhaven. These colleges gave us a fresh take on classic 2-color pairings in imaginative and intuitive ways. Prismari takes the passion of red, the skill of blue, and interprets them through the lens of the arts. This is a college full of visual and musical artists who use their expressive nature to cast spells and captivate all who witness their works. The founder and namesake of this college is also the commander of this deck. Galazeth Prismari is a legendary elder dragon with power and toughness 3 and 4, who cost 2, 1 blue, and 1 red. When Galazeth enters the battlefield, we create a treasure token. Galazeth also allows us to tap any artifact we control for a mana of any color, but this mana can only be spent to cast an instant or sorcery spell. Like art in general, constraints can breed creativity, and Galazeth's ability allows us to use this constraint to our benefit. This deck is titled Exceptional Spectacle, because we are aiming to generate a critical mass of mana that we will spend to cast show-stopping X spells. Now, when I say X spells, I am referring to cards that have a variable X in their casting cost, meaning we pay any amount of mana, which usually affects the strength of the spell. Our goals for this deck are to create and collect artifacts, draw and select key cards, then cast huge X spells that will warrant an encore. Now let's put paint to canvas and unveil this masterpiece of a deck. Strixhaven brought new art to the treasure token, which represents the artistic works that Prismari students create. And since treasure can flavorfully and functionally fit into this deck, we have a heavy emphasis on them. Galazeth's ability essentially turns these tokens into moxins, specifically for instants and sorceries, that don't need to be sacrificed and therefore can be reused. Cards such as Seize the Spoils, Pirate's Pillage, and Treasure Map can create treasure tokens and provide some card advantage. Plus, Treasure Map can flip into Treasure Cove, which taps for mana or can sacrifice a treasure and turn it into card draw. Impulsive Pilferer creates a treasure token when they die, but can be cast for their encore cost, with up to 3 copies being made to attack our opponents and create treasures when they are sacrificed at the end of turn. Storm the Vault is an enchantment that creates a treasure whenever one or more of our creatures deal combat damage to a player and flips into the land Vault of Katlakan, which can tap for an amount of blue mana equal to the number of artifacts we control, which will hopefully be a whole treasure trove full. Now, this card might seem familiar to some of y'all, and Vault of Katlakan is essentially a Tolarian Academy, just with extra steps, and considering Tolarian Academy is a card that's actually banned in Commander, you can tell this is a sweet card because it is going to give us a lot of value. We also run Prying Blade and Gold Vein Pick, which both create a treasure token when the equipped creature deals combat damage to an opponent. These are perfect to equip to our commander alongside some Swiftfoot Boots or Lightning Greaves to offer just a little extra protection. Since our commander flies, there's a good chance we can connect and keep the treasures coming. And on a side note, equipped artifacts can still be tapped as part of Galazeth's ability, so even our equipment are mana rocks. And speaking of rocks, meet Togo, Goblin Weaponsmith, who creates an equipment artifact named Rock. Yep, that's right, just Rock. He is literally going to create us mana rocks. He creates these whenever a land enters our battlefield. Now, these rocks could be thrown for damage, but we will usually be using them to cast our more, elegant spells? And while Togo demands respect, our next card is equally respected and feared by Commander players, as Dockside Extortionist creates a treasure token for each artifact and enchantment all of our opponents control. Since Commander is all about ramp, there is a good chance we will make a fair to insane amount of treasure based on our opponent's artifact ramp and utility pieces. Then we have a new Strixhaven card that is sure to see play in Stormkiln Artist, who not only gets +X+O, where X is the number of artifacts we control, but also has Magecraft, create a treasure token. Now Magecraft is a new ability from Strixhaven that triggers each time that we cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell. So each time we cast or copy one of these spells, we will be creating a treasure. And lastly in this category, I want to mention two spells that can make a whole bunch of treasure at once, and those are Spell Swindle and Brass's Bounty. Spell Swindle is a counter spell that creates treasures equal to the mana value of the spell that we counter. This can be a huge swing, not only stopping our opponent's big spell, but also ramping us into the stratosphere. Then Brass's Bounty creates a treasure token equal to the number of lands we control. In the late game, this can be 5, 6, 7 plus mana and really set us up for some huge X spells. Next, I would like to talk about the dragon sub-theme in this deck, because where there's treasure, there is sure to be dragons looking to hoard it. Rapacious Dragon creates 2 treasure tokens when it enters the battlefield, while Goldspan Dragon is a 4/4 flying trampler who creates a treasure when they attack or when they are targeted by a spell. They also allow us to sacrifice our treasure for 2 mana instead of 1 if we aren't utilizing Galazeth's ability. Hypersonic Dragon allows us to cast sorceries at instant speed, and Gadrak the Crown Scourge will create us a token at our end step for each non-token creature that dies that turn. Then we have dragons that can easily close out the game if left unchecked. The first being the original blue-red dragon favorite Niv Mizzet, Perrin, who deals a damage to any target whenever we draw a card, and draws us a card whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery. Yes, this will trigger on our instance as well. We also have Hellkite Tyrant, whom when they deal combat damage to a player, steals all of their artifacts and gives them to us. Then if we control 20 or more artifacts on our upkeep, we just simply win the game. Sometimes we don't even need to swing with Hellkite to win with the amount of treasures this deck can churn out. Lastly, we have Hellkite Igniter, who is a 5/5 trample and haste dragon who can get +X+O for each artifact we control if we pay 1 and a red. Now we can activate this ability multiple times, and if we have enough treasures, we can one-shot an opponent out of nowhere. And speaking of having an absurd amount of treasure, Magda Brazen Outlaw can create a treasure whenever we tap them or another dwarf, but more importantly, they can have us sacrifice 5 treasures to search our library for any dragon or artifact and put it straight onto our battlefield at instant speed. Magda will make sure we always have the right dragon for the right situation. But like any great artiste, we are bound to have the envy of our competitors, so we will alleviate some of their jealousy with these political tools. All of these artifacts only trigger if they are untapped, and since we can tap them for mana with Galazeth, we can choose when they are online and by virtue who they will be online for. Blink Moth Urn generates mana each turn during the pre-combat main phase equal to that player's number of artifacts. Genesis Chamber puts a 1/1 artifact mirror token onto the player's battlefield when they have a non-token creature enter, and Howling Mine will draw each player an extra card during their draw step if it's untapped. These tools can be used as political favors for our opponents, or their benefits can be kept for ourselves if other parties are unwilling to compromise. We also run a few enchantments that will benefit us for casting instants and sorceries. Trail of Evidence creates a clue artifact token whenever we cast an instant or sorcery. This clue can be used as a mana rock with Galazeth's ability, or be sacrificed by paying 2 mana to draw a card. Then we have Shark Typhoon, which is not only a great name, but will create an XX flying shark token whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, where X is that spell's mana value. We can also cycle it to create a single XX flying shark where X is the mana that we pay into it. Lastly, we have Metallurgic Summoning, which will create an XX artifact creature token whenever we cast an instant or sorcery where X is its mana value. We can also choose to exile this enchantment for 3 blue and another blue to return all instants and sorceries from the graveyard to our hand, but only if we control 6 or more artifacts, which, well, we usually do. All of these tokens will serve our plan in some way, either providing us with more mana rocks, such as in the tokens made by Metallurgic Summonings, or by blockers in the Shark Typhoon tokens. Now we move on to the true beauty of this deck, the instants and the sorceries. Like many artists, be they musical or visual, we plan to create a variety of pieces on a variety of mediums, so I call these spells the vignettes, as they are smaller in scale but just as beautiful. These cards include Opt, Frantic Search, Prismari Command, Faithless Looting, and Ponder, all cards that will generate us card advantage while some offer a little extra. For example, Prismari Command allows us to choose 2 modes between deal 2 damage to any target, draw 2 cards, and then discard 2 cards, create a treasure token, and destroy an artifact. These smaller spells will keep us churning through the deck so that we can find our more impactful ones. Then we have our Rising Stars, the cards that aren't ready to steal the show, but will definitely have our opponents taking note. Chaos Warp will have a player shuffle any permanent of our choice into their library with the stipulation that that player then gets to reveal a card off the top of their library and put it onto the battlefield if it's a permanent. While this can sometimes, and this is in really rare instances, give our opponent a better permanent, this spell will usually have our opponent trading their win con for a land. Side note here, I have definitely gone for the silly play of Chaos Warping my own useless token or something, trying to get something. It never works out good. I would just skip that idea altogether. Anyways, I'm getting off track. Multiple Choice is a spell that gets better the more mana we pay into X. X equals 1 gets us a scry and a draw. X equals 2 lets us choose a player and have them return a creature to their hand. Again, this player could be us if we need to bounce something back and protect it, or it could be our opponents. X equals 3 creates a 4/4 blue-red elemental token, and X equals 4 gives us all of these modes. Culmination of Studies is another new card from Strixhaven that has us pay X in its cost. We exile the top X cards from our library and has us create a treasure token for each land we exile, draw a card for each blue card we exile, and deals 1 damage to each opponent for each red card we exile. Each of these is something the rest of our deck wants us to do anyways, so packing them into one spell is just truly inspiring. Sublime Epiphany is an instant that gives us a literal wall of text of options that can have a huge tempo swing depending on when we cast it. We can choose one or more of the following options: counter target spell, counter target activated ability or triggered ability, and believe me, this one will save your life with so many commanders that have such killer abilities. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and or target player draws a card. All of these modes can be used at different points of the game, and every once in a while you'll be able to activate it for all of its modes and just blow out your opponents. Then we have our Magma Opus, and yes, you did hear that right, I said Magma Opus, which is another card with a program book's worth of text. This spell deals 4 damage as we choose among any number of targets, taps 2 targets' permanents down, creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token, and then draws us 2 cards. While this won't usually win us the game, it is definitely a big, splashy commander card and a true masterpiece in this deck. And now it's time for the grand finale. These spells can end our opponents, but have our audience erupt in thunderous applause. First, I would like to introduce Rite of Replication, which we will usually aim to kick, as Rite of Replication will create a token copy of any target creature, but will instead create 5 copies of that creature if we kick it. This will usually result in 5 copies of, let's say, our Hellkite, our Goldspan Dragon, or even 5 copies of our opponent's best creature. Imagine it. Just kick the spell, boom, board in a box. Then we have Comet Storm, which deals X damage to target creature or player and can be kicked multiple times for 1 mana for each of these targets. With enough treasure, we can pump enough mana into this to finish off multiple opponents at once or spread the damage amongst problematic creatures on the board. Banefire and Electro Dominance are both X damage spells with some upsides. Banefire can't be countered if X is 5 or more, while Electro Dominance allows us to cast an additional spell with converted mana cost X or less from our hand for free after the Electro Dominance resolves. And last but not least, here to steal the show, Jaya's Immolating Inferno is perfect for commanders as it deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. Now, let's think about commander. How many opponents are there usually? 1, 2, 3, and then yourself. But you don't count, so 3 opponents. This card is meant to finish games of Commander, targeting each of your opponents and sending a huge amount of damage thanks to all the treasure and artifacts tokens that we are going to create. Any one of these spells is sure to steal the show and ensure that we receive a standing ovation.
The beautiful part of being able to acknowledge your own creativity and becoming an artist because of it is a badge of honor.
Now, on a personal note, this deck is near to me for a few reasons. As a teacher, Strixhaven as a set has me see representations of academia, mentorship, and student engagement. Many of these cards either remind me of my days studying in college or in my current days spending trying to inspire young minds to not settle for anything less than their best because I know each of my students has greatness in them. As a musician, I'm uplifted by the references to art and expression in this deck, especially because I feel it represents the vulnerability and risks that artists take when going all in on their craft. Casting huge spells that could be countered or disrupted parallels when an artist presents their work for people to judge, appraise, and potentially reject. This vulnerability, combined with the possibility of pulling off something great, is what fuels my soul when I play this deck, and I can truly relate it to the feelings that I have had when I am performing on stage for an audience. The nerves, the adrenaline, the gratification all speak to my artistic heart, and I hope that you are able to experience some of these same emotions if you decide to play this deck or some version of it. Which brings me to the part of the video where I ask, what cards would you put into this deck? You can find my full deck list in the video's description, and while you're down there, I do encourage you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Each of these little engagements goes such a far way in helping this content reach a wider audience, and I am truly grateful for each and every one of you who have chosen to watch this video. If you want to connect with me or want to follow my content, you can check out my Twitch, where I stream MTG Arena and Paper Commander, my Twitter, where I post nonsense tweets and, well, my feelings, Instagram for pics for when I'm feeling cute, and now we can even connect on TikTok. I'm actually really enjoying how TikTok has allowed me to be creative in different ways, and I would love to connect there or on any other of these mentioned platforms. Lastly, I would like to thank my amazing editor Busted Sleeves for their continued work on improving the quality of my channel, as well as new friend Azhaiel for providing the lovely voiceovers for the quotes in the video. Please go follow and support them on their respected platforms, which I will make sure are linked in the description. Till next time, I'm Casual Jake reminding you, don't forget to play your land drops. I'll see you next time.